2020, at least I thought December 25th of 2020 was going to be my last day. And so I asked this random guy, I'm like, hey man, if we a party at 2, we'll get to sit down faster, I'll pay for your meal. And he was like in his mid-30s, and he was like, yeah, sure. So I got him, we sit down at this table right over there. He starts dumping all his life issues on me, like starts dumping everything that he's going through. He's like, my wife's divorcing me, she's taking my kids, and she's taking all this, blah, blah. I'm trying to run away from my problems one last time, and I got somebody else dumping their problems on me. Like, it was awful. And I remember just kind of not paying attention to this guy, just eating, as he's just going in, just talking, and I'm just not listening. He says one thing that God used to change the course of my destiny. I love my wife and she doesn't feel the same about me. There's no growth in a relationship if the love isn't mutual. And when he said that, it was like all of time stopped. And for a split second, all of the head knowledge I'd ever learned anything in Bible class, all these Bible verses I learned when I was a little kid going to vacation Bible school at church, like a cinematic film reel, just panning thoughts in my brain. I'm hearing Bible verse scriptures I've never even read before in my life in my brain, and I'm finally hearing the words and the affirmation that I had searched for in my addictions and in my sin cycles that left me empty every time after I did them. The one thing I had never tried was Jesus, and all I hear is that I love you.
I remember being at a party, drunk, and I went into the bathroom to wash my hands, and I looked in the mirror and I heard the Lord say, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" And then I went to church, and the Lord sicked great glory on me. I went with a girlfriend. We were not walking with the Lord. I got up to go forward. She put her hand on my knee. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to give my life to Jesus." And she said, "If you do that, we're done." And you've heard this story. I said, "I guess we're done." Because I was done with sin. Because I heard my Lord. And he called me.
God, I don't think you're real, but if I'm wrong, prove it. 2 weeks come and go. I didn't even remember praying that prayer. There was zero faith attached to my prayer. And as I was dialing a phone off behind me to my left, I audibly heard the voice of God. And the 2 words he spoke to me were, "Call Mom." I didn't hesitate. Phone rang 6 times, 7 times. On the 8th ring, my mother answered the telephone, and when she said hello, instantly I knew something was terribly wrong. When I hear God say to me, "Call Mom," and I did so, my mother was attempting suicide. I ran out of my office, jumped into my car, drove Interstate 75 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I drove up this interstate, and I talked to this God I did not know. "God, help. I can't save my mom, but you can." My mom was barely alive as she came down some stairs. She fell into my arms. I picked her up. I carried her to her car. I drove her to Park Ridge Hospital. And as we drove, she looked over at me. She says, "Dean, I can't be dying." And I said, "Mom, hang on. You're not going to die, but you're going to have to choose to live." I get her to a hospital. A doctor threw me against the wall. They rushed her to the emergency room. 45 minutes later, this doctor walks across the ER. This doctor has the most perplexed look on his face. And he said, "Mr. Sykes, there's no medical reason to tell you this at all. It is a, quote, miracle of God. You can go see her." I looked straight up to heaven. I was like, "You're real?" I took a walk that day. I could take you to the spot in Park Ridge Hospital where I leaned against the wall and I had an encounter with Jesus.